Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive paradigm shift in how we build software. We're finally moving away from those clunky, static digital interfaces and actually starting to craft living, breathing digital ecosystems using Justinmind. The old way of designing software simply cannot keep up with what modern users demand, so it's time to rethink the entire foundation of product development. We've all seen this exact scenario play out, right? A company drops 8 months and hundreds of thousands of dollars developing a highly anticipated app. Marketing is absolutely flawless, the launch generates massive hype, and thousands of users download it on day one. But then, within 30 seconds of opening the app, a huge percentage of those users just bounce. They delete it and never come back. Why? Well, because the onboarding flow was confusing. The buttons didn't react the way they expected, and the core feature was buried under like 3 unnecessary menus. That is the painful reality of a failed launch, and it represents a staggering waste of time, talent, and resources. The root cause of these disastrous launches almost always comes back to a fundamental misunderstanding of how real people interact with software. You see, focusing on a single, isolated screen is exactly like looking at a static painting. Sure, you can admire the colors and the layout, but you can't walk through a painting. You can't experience it over time. When design teams only look at isolated screens, they're entirely blind to the living, breathing path a user actually takes. They completely miss the awkward waiting times between clicks, the frustration of a confusing error message, and the friction a user feels when they try to seamlessly jump from one task to the next. To fix this, we're going to follow the actual product development lifecycle step by step today. We'll be covering 1. Mapping complete user journeys, 2. Prototyping interactive digital experiences, 3. Multidisciplinary product design collaboration, and 4. Navigating evolving digital ecosystems. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Mapping Complete User Journeys. Back in the early days of software design, a standard deliverable was often just a flat PDF showing what a login screen or a dashboard might look like. It was purely an aesthetic exercise. But what happens when the user forgets their password? What happens if their internet connection drops right in the middle of a transaction? A static visual has absolutely zero answers for those scenarios. Transitioning to complete user journeys means we start designing for the edge cases, the complex interactions, and the real-world messes a user actually faces. We're shifting from asking, how does this look, to asking, how does this actually work when someone is stressed out, in a hurry, and just trying to get a job done? Imagine you're trying to buy a pair of shoes on a brand new e-commerce app. You find the shoes, you tap Add to Cart, but suddenly there's no back button and no cart icon in sight. You're literally trapped on the product page. That's a total dead end. By proactively mapping the entire journey from the very beginning, we uncover these exact types of frustrating navigation traps. We expose unnecessary complexity, like forcing a user to fill out a 12-field form when a simple zip code would have done the trick. Catching these massive flaws during the conceptual phase improves the core usability of the product long before anyone starts paying for expensive server space or engineering hours. Moving right along to Section 2, Prototyping Interactive Digital Experiences. Think of interactive prototyping like a wind tunnel for the automotive industry. A car manufacturer would never build a final, fully functional sports car, drive it out onto a track, and just cross their fingers that it's aerodynamic. No way. They test meticulously crafted models in a controlled wind tunnel first. Interactive prototyping with tools like Justinmind serves as that exact same risk-free testing lab for digital products. It allows teams to put a realistic, clickable model right into the hands of a user and observe where they stumble, where they succeed, and where they hesitate, all without writing a single line of production code. And the true magic of this controlled environment is the ability to run rapidly through a continuous feedback loop. You review the prototype with real users. You immediately identify where they get confused. You implement improvements on the fly, and then you evaluate all over again. If you skip these steps and rush straight into full development, you're essentially hard-coding your unverified assumptions. And let me tell you, fixing a broken user flow in a live application requires pulling developers off new features, updating databases, and pushing new code. It's a process that costs exponentially more than just tweaking a button placement in an early-stage prototype. You know, there's a legendary story in the user experience industry about the $300 million button. A major retailer simply changed a button on their checkout page from register to continue, allowing users to purchase items as a guest rather than forcing them to create an account. That single, data-driven change generated an additional $300 million in revenue the following year. The original designers had just assumed people wouldn't mind creating an account. The evidence proved otherwise. Moving from assumption-based design to evidence-based design is the defining characteristic of a mature, future-ready product team. Which brings us to the human element in Section 3, multidisciplinary product design collaboration. Bringing a complex digital ecosystem to life requires balancing a classic tug-of-war between competing priorities. Designers naturally want pixel-perfect animations and gorgeous interface elements. Developers, on the other hand, are looking at the architecture, pointing out potential server load issues and latency problems that those animations might cause. Meanwhile, product managers are sweating over aligning the whole operation with tight quarterly budgets and strict launch deadlines. And in the middle of all of this, the end users just want a tool that solves their problem quickly and easily. Honestly, this inherent friction between different disciplines is actually a good thing, provided you have a way to harness it constructively. Because let's be real, when you have designers, developers, and business executives sitting in a room arguing over abstract concepts, miscommunication is almost guaranteed. An interactive prototype acts as the ultimate equalizer. It becomes the single source of truth. Instead of endlessly debating whether a swipe gesture feels intuitive, the team can simply load the prototype onto a phone and try it themselves. It stops those agonizing meeting room debates in their tracks, translating complex technical and aesthetic ideas into a tangible, shared language that perfectly aligns business objectives with actual user requirements. Finally, let's zoom out to the macro level for Section 4, navigating evolving digital ecosystems. Modern users do not sit rigidly at a desk to interact with software anymore. A user might start filling out a complex insurance claim on their smartphone while riding the train to work, review their progress on a tablet during their lunch break, and finally hit submit on their desktop computer when they get home. The digital experience absolutely must hand off seamlessly between these completely different environments. Building this kind of fluid ecosystem requires a prototyping strategy that can simultaneously visualize and stress test accessibility, visual consistency, and responsive behavior across every possible screen size and context. And looking toward the horizon, the stakes are only getting higher. Integrating incredible emerging tech like conversational AI or augmented reality overlays introduces an entirely new layer of interaction design. How do you prototype the waiting period while a large language model generates a response? How do you map the user journey when connected smart home devices are silently triggering actions in the background? You simply cannot rely on static sketches for this. Designing for these frontiers demands robust interactive prototyping to ensure that incredibly complex back-end functionality remains intuitive and actually valuable to the everyday person holding the device.
At the end of the day, adopting this iterative, journey-focused foundation is all about profoundly de-risking your entire operation. Whether you're a student developing core competencies, a researcher investigating new interface paradigms, or a global enterprise team building the next flagship app, interactive prototyping bridges the gap between big ideas and flawless execution. It's the mechanism that saves thousands of development hours, prevents disastrous product launches, and ensures that the final product actually delights the people using it.
As digital transformation continues to accelerate, static design methods are rapidly becoming obsolete. So, I'll leave you with this critical question to think about regarding your own team. Is your design process truly adaptable enough for tomorrow's technology, or are you still designing static paintings in a living, interactive world? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.